Elden Ring is out, and with it, loads of new people who didn't like previous Souls games have taken the plunge again, only to somehow be surprised that they still don't like the same shit. Putting Dark Souls into an open world doesn't make it not Dark Souls anymore. There's just a lot of wandering around on horseback doing nothing in between the actual dungeons and castles now. There are a lot of takes on Elden Ring currently circulating, and I'm going to dissect some of them, including my own. One of the reasons I think new people have been re-enticed to try this out is because they have been sold a lie, or at least a misrepresentation, that media outlets and the developers themselves have been propagating, which is that Elden Ring is the, quote, most accessible game in the franchise. Pfft. Elden Ring is the hardest Souls game by far. I'm at a point in my boss ranking file where I've gotten my second Great Rune after beating Renala in the lake area, and now everywhere else the game would have me go, I get one shot at 22 Vigor, not only by the bosses, but by half the regular enemies scattered around. Every time I get OKO'd, I think to myself, well, guess I'm not supposed to be here yet, so I go to Caelid and I get one shot over there by the T-Rex dogs, so I go to that area northeast of the lake and I get one shot over there by a Sith Lord dragon with a fucking lightsaber, so I go into a random cave and get one shot by a boss that's literally invisible and just backstabs you for free, and all that makes me think, yeah, this feels like the most accessible game in the franchise. I'm level 60, I have a plus 13 weapon, and nowhere feels like I'm supposed to be there. 22 Vigor is a higher stat number than I would have put into any of the other Souls games, and I do perfectly fine in those. But maybe this game is meant for you to have like 30, given that the numbers seem inflated. I found a spell that requires 70 intelligence. Like, my god, who is ever gonna build up enough of that? I get that Elden Ring is a humongous game, so the levels have to be more spread out and matter longer, but the mid-game seems to get a massive difficulty spike once your stats don't cut it anymore. Now, people might say it's more accessible because you have more noob-friendly options, like spirit summons, but to a new player, good luck even finding the summoning bell. I missed it for 11 hours on my first playthrough because the chick who gives it to you only shows up at one particular site of grace you've already visited after you get your horse, and only during the night, and I never had any reason to go back there, much less during a specific time of day. Apparently, a merchant at the round table also sells it, but I wasn't looking that carefully at their inventory since I didn't even know I was supposed to be looking for it. When it comes to good melee weapons, this game only facilitates you if you're running a strength build. Good dex weapons are nowhere to be found in the early game unless you kill the NPCs at Castle Morn or Murkwater Cave, and even those weapons aren't good. They're just reinforced, so they're powerful compared to non-reinforced weapons. Like, you're not going to use a regular-ass spear the whole game, no matter how plus it is. So is this game accessible? Maybe on the second playthrough when you know where shit is and what routes to take, but that's a bit antithetical to the idea of accessible in the first place, isn't it? So no. Also, a lot of the bosses are hard now at the stage I'm at, like stupid hard. Lots of multi-boss encounters, lots of this combo goes on forever and every hit one-shots you, lol. Also, the game isn't accessible if the only way you can get through it is to summon spirits and human co-op partners, turtle behind a 100% block shield, and spam spells from a mile away. Accessible doesn't mean only one strategy works for the people who aren't gamer gods. You can't only achieve success with the cheesiest tactics and act like the game is welcoming to newcomers. I'm a Souls veteran. I played this shit for a decade. I'm running a shieldless melee build like an OG, and this game lays me out on the regular, more than Dark Souls or Bloodborne ever did. The only game where I maybe had a harder time starting out was Demon Souls on PS5, because World Tendency is a dogshit mechanic that almost softlocked the game for me after this impossible-to-kill NPC invader kept spawning inches from the first bonfire in the Adjudicator boss area, and every time I got one-shot by him, I'd respawn and he'd already be charging at me again, because apparently dying while human is frowned upon, which forces you to play the game with less health and one locked ring slot, and it's just pure garbage. Elden Ring doesn't have anything like that I've seen so far, although there was a time when I got killed by an enemy and transported to the basement of this volcano mansion and touched a site of grace there, and then because it was underground, I wasn't allowed to fast travel, and so I wasn't allowed to go anywhere else until I beat this super BS multi-boss fight with two of the enemies that had just taken me there to begin with. So it's like, okay, you can see that I just died to one of these things, which is why I'm here, and your response is you're not leaving until you can beat two of them at the same time. This game is not accessible to newcomers, it's barely accessible to veterans. I can't wait to start a new game as a spellcaster and use spirit summons on every fight, and then go on Twitter and pretend the game is easy and recommend it to all my game journalist friends. It's pretty clear that despite everything I just said, Elden Ring is overall the best Souls game by a mile just from sheer content. Even though you won't find most of it because caves are hidden and the open world is empty, in the sense that yes, there are groups of enemies and environmental curiosities scattered around, but a lot of them amount to nothing. The enemies aren't guarding any items, the crumbled ruins just have a couple fragments to pick up and don't lead anywhere, and most of your time is going to be spent spent riding alongside a cliff edge, desperately looking for a way down. For all the convenience of those horse boost jumps, there aren't even close to enough of them. People talk about the thrill of exploration, but it feels more like the game is just hiding its best content for me, and I have to go do perimeter checks, searching every nook and cranny to find it. And it's cool when you do finally stumble on something, it just feels like you wasted a lot of time beforehand. I think this issue could be easily fixed if the compass functioned like Skyrim's, where caves and stuff would show up on it when you were near enough, and then you can just pivot to going in that direction and make sure you're not missing out on a cool boss or good item. But when the Souls is being Souls, it's the best Souls. It's going to take a couple more weeks to a month before anyone feels comfortable discussing Elden Ring's flaws or publicly admitting it even has any, so don't be sold on the idea of the perfect video game that'll bring you nothing but orgasms every time you play it. Elden Ring is frustrating as hell, and the way it makes me feel sometimes reminds me of how avid players talk about League of Legends, like it's a game that destroys your spirit every day, and every day they're like, anyone want a queue? They can't get enough of it, they want the pain. I can't imagine playing this game and not hating it at least 30% of the time. Lots of the design choices are tailor-made to kick you while you're down and evoke these reactions. That said, I'm in the middle of 2 playthroughs, one for streams and one for a boss ranking pipe dream, and I'm already excited to start a third one later on. Elden Ring is the new gold standard for Souls, and people will be playing it 10 years from now. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Watch all my videos with short shorts on and a can of root beer in your hand, and I'll see you guys next time.